Sharks are among the ocean's most efficient predators, with some species capable of detecting a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized pool. Their speed, power, and instinct make them formidable hunters, especially in the shallow waters where humans often swim. From the lightning-fast mako to the unpredictable bull shark, these encounters remind us that the ocean's top predators can strike without warning, turning a day at the beach into a fight for survival. But what happens when these encounters turn deadly? In January 1999, the summer heat was at its peak in Australia, and the coastal town of Port Carlisle was buzzing with activity. Tourists and locals alike flocked to the beach, eager to escape the sweltering temperatures. The beaches along this stretch of the coast were known for their clear waters and white sands, making them a favorite spot for families and young people. Among the crowds that day was 14-year-old Josh Carter, a towering boy for his age, already weighing over 200 pounds due to his large frame and athletic build. Josh was a natural athlete playing rugby at his school, and his size and strength made him a force to be reckoned with on the field. Josh was on vacation with his parents and a group of friends from school. They had spent the morning playing beach volleyball, eating snacks, and enjoying the sun. By early afternoon, the heat had become almost unbearable, and the group decided to cool off with a swim in the ocean. The beach was well patrolled, and though shark sightings were not unheard of in these waters, the area was generally considered safe for swimmers. Lifeguards kept a close watch, and the water was filled with families and children, all enjoying the cool relief from the summer sun. Josh and his friends splashed into the water, laughing and challenging each other to swim out to the deeper waves. The ocean was calm, the waves gently lapping against their bodies as they swam further from the shore. The sounds of seagulls filled the air, and the smell of salt water and sunscreen was strong. It was the perfect day, the kind of day that makes you forget about the dangers that can lie hidden beneath the surface. The boys swam out beyond the crowded shallows, where the water was deeper and the waves more challenging. Josh, always eager to prove himself, led the way, his strong strokes propelling him further out than the others. The water here was cooler, and the depth made it harder to see the bottom. But Josh wasn't concerned. He was confident in his swimming abilities and felt at home in the water. However, Josh and his friends didn't know that on this day a massive great white shark was patrolling the waters nearby. The shark, nearly 18 feet long, had been drawn closer to shore by the presence of seals and schools of fish, its natural prey. Great white sharks are apex predators, and their size and power make them one of the most feared creatures in the ocean. Though they rarely target humans, mistaking them for seals can lead to tragic encounters. As Josh swam further from the shore, his friends began to call out to him, urging him to turn back. But he was focused on the waves ahead, his mind on the thrill of the swim. The water around him was calm, the surface unbroken by any signs of danger. Yet beneath him, the great white shark had taken notice of the large figure moving through the water. In a flash, the shark moved. The calm water was shattered as the massive predator surged upwards, its powerful tail propelling it at terrifying speed. Josh barely had time to register the movement beneath him before the great white struck with a force that sent shockwaves through the water. The shark's jaws clamped down on Josh's side, the sheer power of the bite nearly cutting him in half. The impact was so sudden and violent that it knocked the breath from his lungs, and he was pulled under the water before he could even scream. The water, once clear and blue, turned crimson as blood poured from the wound. The shark's teeth, sharp as knives, tore through flesh and bone with ease, its powerful body thrashing as it tried to subdue its prey. Josh's friends, still swimming closer to shore, turned at the sound of the water's violent disturbance. Their eyes widened in horror as they saw the massive dorsal fin breaking the surface, the water around it stained with blood. Panic set in, and they began to shout for help, their voices filled with terror. On the beach, people began to notice the commotion. Lifeguards sprang into action, blowing their whistles and waving people out of the water. But it was already too late. The great white shark, driven by its predatory instincts, had pulled Josh deeper into the ocean. The boy's struggles were no match for the shark's strength, and with each thrash of its powerful tail it dragged him further from safety. Josh's body was limp, the pain overwhelming as he tried to fight back. But the shark was relentless, its jaws crushing down with every bite. The water around them was a chaotic mix of blood and foam, the once peaceful ocean now a scene of unimaginable horror. The beach, so full of life just moments before, had fallen into stunned silence as onlookers watched the tragedy unfold. Despite the lifeguards' desperate attempts to reach him, the shark's assault was too much. It took Josh down once more, disappearing into the depths with its prey. The water slowly began to calm, the waves washing away the blood, leaving behind only the broken remains of a surfboard and the haunting memory of what had just occurred. The beach, once filled with laughter and joy, was now overshadowed by the brutal reality of nature's power. The attack left the community in shock, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the ocean's surface. Patrols were increased, and shark warnings became a common sight, but the memory of that day would linger long after the summer ended. In August 2001, Dr. Emily Hart, a marine biologist specializing in freshwater ecosystems, arrived in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. She was part of a research team conducting a study on the diverse aquatic life in the Amazon River, one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. The team had set up camp near the small village of Novo Rio, a remote settlement along the river in Brazil. The Amazon, with its vast network of tributaries and murky waters, was both fascinating and unpredictable, teeming with species that were as dangerous as they were intriguing. The day began like many others during their expedition. The team woke early, the thick humidity already clinging to their skin. The air was filled with the sounds of the jungle, birds calling, insects buzzing, and the distant rustle of leaves as monkeys leaped from tree to tree. Emily, always eager to get started, reviewed her notes and prepared for another day of diving. Her goal was to document the behavior and habitat of lesser-known species that thrived in the Amazon's murky depths. Emily was a seasoned diver, with years of experience exploring rivers and lakes around the world. But the Amazon was different. Its waters were darker, its currents more unpredictable, and the creatures that lived within it were often hidden until they were dangerously close. She had been diving in the river for several weeks, and though she had encountered a variety of fascinating species, she remained cautious. The river was home to many dangerous animals, including piranhas, caimans, and, of particular interest to Emily, electric eels. Electric eels, which can grow up to 8 feet long, are known for their ability to generate powerful electric shocks. These shocks, used to stun prey and defend against threats, can reach up to 600 volts, enough to incapacitate a human. Despite their fearsome reputation, they were an important subject of Emily's research. She wanted to understand more about their behavior, particularly how they interacted with other species in the river. On this particular day, the team had identified a promising dive site along a quiet stretch of the river. The water here was slow-moving, the surface calm and undisturbed. The jungle canopy overhead provided a patchwork of shade, creating a tranquil setting that belied the dangers lurking below. Emily, along with her dive partner, Carlos Mendez, a local guide with years of experience in the Amazon, prepared to enter the water. The team conducted their final checks, ensuring that all equipment was functioning properly. The rest of the team would remain on the boat, monitoring the dive and ready to assist if needed. Emily and Carlos slipped into the water, the coolness a welcome relief from the oppressive heat. As they descended into the murky depths, the sunlight faded, leaving them in a world of shadows and silhouettes. The water was thick with sediment, reducing visibility to just a few feet. Every movement stirred up clouds of silt, making it difficult to see anything more than a few inches in front of them. Emily kept close to Carlos, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as they moved deeper into the river. Fish darted past them, their scales glinting briefly in the light before disappearing into the gloom. The dive was going smoothly, with Emily noting the various species they encountered along the way. But as they moved further from the boat, Emily's flashlight caught something that made her pause. A long, sinuous shape moving slowly through the water. It was an electric eel, its body almost 8 feet long and covered in dark, mottled skin. The eel moved with a fluid grace, its muscles rippling as it swam. Emily signaled to Carlos and they both stopped, watching the creature from a safe distance. Emily's heart raced with excitement. This was exactly the kind of encounter she had hoped for. The eel was calm, its movements unhurried as it explored the riverbed. Emily began to move closer, hoping to observe its behavior in more detail. She knew the risks, but her desire to document this rare moment outweighed her caution. As she approached, the eel seemed to notice her, its movements becoming more deliberate. Emily slowed her advance, careful not to startle the creature. But then something changed. The eel stopped, its body stiffening as if sensing danger. Emily froze, realizing too late that she had crossed an invisible line. In an instant, the eel reacted. With a sudden burst of energy, it turned toward Emily, its body coiling like a spring. Before she could react, the eel unleashed a powerful electric shock, sending a jolt of electricity through the water and into her body. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, a searing bolt that coursed through her muscles and nerves. Emily's body seized up, her muscles locking in place as the shock paralyzed her. Her mind screamed for her to move, to swim to safety, but her body refused to obey. The shock wave rippled through the water, creating a visible disturbance as it passed. Emily's regulator was knocked loose from her mouth, and she struggled to breathe, the water around her suddenly feeling thick and suffocating. Carlos, who had been a few feet behind her, saw the eel's attack and quickly swam toward her. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her to the surface, but the eel was not finished. It struck again, another shock tearing through Emily's body. Her vision blurred, and her thoughts became a jumbled mess of pain and fear. The water, which had felt so cool and welcoming, was now a prison, holding her in place as the eel continued its assault. The team on the boat noticed the disturbance in the water and realized something was wrong. They began pulling on the dive lines, desperate to bring Emily and Carlos back to the surface. Carlos, sensing the urgency, grabbed Emily around the waist and began kicking toward the surface with all his strength. The weight of her limp body and the resistance of the water made the ascent agonizingly slow. Every second felt like an eternity as they struggled to reach the surface. The eel, perhaps satisfied that the threat had been neutralized, retreated into the depths, leaving Emily and Carlos to their desperate climb. The sunlight above them seemed distant, the surface of the water impossibly far away. Emily's mind drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain and lack of oxygen taking their toll. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, they broke through the surface. The team on the boat quickly pulled them aboard, their faces pale with fear. Emily's body was limp, her breathing shallow and labored. The burns from the electric shocks were visible on her skin, angry red marks that traced the path of the eel's attack. The team worked quickly, administering oxygen and checking her vital signs. The encounter had left her with severe muscle damage and burns, but she was alive. The Amazon River, with all its beauty and mystery, had nearly claimed another victim. As the boat sped back to the safety of the camp, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The power of the electric eel, an often overlooked but deadly creature, was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the depths of the wild. In April 2003, Jake Thornton, a seasoned adventurer and outdoor enthusiast, set out on a solo kayaking trip along the rugged coastline of New Zealand's South Island. Jake had always been drawn to the sea, and the stretch of ocean near Kaikoura was one of his favorite places to paddle. The region was known for its stunning scenery, with towering cliffs, rocky outcrops, and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretching out to the horizon. On that particular day, the weather was perfect. The sky was clear, the sea was calm, and there was a slight breeze that made the conditions ideal for kayaking. Jake was an experienced kayaker, having spent years exploring various waterways across New Zealand and beyond. He was well prepared for the journey, equipped with all the necessary gear and a keen sense of adventure. That morning, he had launched his kayak from a small, secluded beach, eager to spend the day navigating the coastline, exploring hidden coves, and maybe even spotting some of the region's abundant marine life. The area was known for its dolphins, seals, and occasionally larger predators like orcas and sharks. But Jake wasn't concerned. He had been in these waters many times before and knew how to handle himself. As he paddled further out to sea, the tranquility of the open ocean enveloped him. The rhythmic sound of the paddle dipping into the water and the gentle swaying of the kayak was almost meditative. Jake relished the solitude, the feeling of being completely alone in such a vast and beautiful environment. He watched seabirds glide overhead and saw the occasional seal popping its head above the water. curious about the lone kayaker passing by. It was the kind of day that made all the effort of getting out of bed early worthwhile. Jake decided to paddle toward a small island a few miles off the coast. The island, a rocky outcrop surrounded by deep blue water, was one of his favorite spots. The journey there would take a couple of hours, but Jake was in no hurry. He savored the journey, enjoying the sense of freedom that came with being out on the water, far from the noise and stress of everyday life. As he approached the island, the water became slightly choppier, but it was nothing Jake couldn't handle. He had navigated through much rougher conditions before. The sun was high in the sky, and Jake considered taking a break on the island, maybe eating the lunch he had packed and enjoying the view before heading back to the mainland. But as he continued paddling, something in the water caught his eye. A dark shape moved beneath the surface, large and fast. Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he remained calm, knowing that many large fish and sea mammals lived in these waters. But then the shape moved closer, and Jake realized it was not just any sea creature. It was a bull shark, one of the most aggressive and unpredictable sharks in the ocean. Before Jake could fully comprehend the situation, the shark rammed into the side of his kayak with incredible force. The impact was so sudden and powerful that it knocked Jake into the water, flipping the kayak over and leaving him struggling to stay afloat. The cold water shocked his system, but there was no time to think. The shark was circling him, its dorsal fin cutting through the water like a knife, coming closer with each pass. Panic set in as Jake frantically tried to right his kayak, but the shark wasn't giving him a chance. It was clearly agitated, its behavior aggressive as it prepared to strike again. Jake grabbed onto the side of the kayak, trying to pull himself back on, but the shark came at him, its jaws snapping shut around his leg with terrifying force. The pain was immediate and excruciating. The shark's teeth dug deep into his flesh, and Jake could feel the power of the predator as it tried to pull him under. Blood poured from the wound, turning the water around him red. Jake fought back with everything he had, using his paddle to strike at the shark, desperate to free himself from its grip. He knew that if he went under, it would be over. The shark released his leg, but it wasn't done. It circled back, ramming the kayak again, trying to knock Jake off balance. The kayak was now listing dangerously, water filling the cockpit as the shark continued its assault. Jake managed to get one leg back into the kayak, but the shark struck again, its body slamming into the kayak with such force that it nearly capsized. The situation was dire, and Jake knew he had to stay calm if he wanted to survive. With sheer willpower, Jake continued to fend off the shark, using his paddle as a weapon to keep it at bay. Each time the shark came close, he struck out, hoping to deter it long enough to escape. His leg was throbbing with pain, the blood loss making him feel lightheaded, but he couldn't give up. He had to keep fighting. Then, in the distance, Jake saw a boat, a small fishing vessel heading in his direction. He waved his arms frantically, shouting for help, even as the shark made another pass. The boat's occupants saw the commotion and quickly changed course, speeding toward Jake. The sight of the boat gave him a surge of hope, but the shark wasn't done yet. As the boat approached, the shark made one final attempt to take Jake down, lunging at the kayak and grabbing hold of it with its powerful jaws. The kayak shook violently, and Jake nearly lost his grip, but he held on, striking the shark repeatedly until it finally let go. The boat arrived just in time, the crew pulling Jake aboard as the shark swam off, disappearing into the deep. Jake collapsed on the deck, his body shaking with pain and exhaustion. His leg was badly injured, and the blood loss had left him weak, but he was alive. The crew quickly tended to his wounds, applying pressure to stop the bleeding as they headed back to shore. The attack left Jake with severe injuries and a deep respect for the power of the ocean. The bull shark, one of the most feared predators in the sea, had nearly claimed another victim. As Jake lay on the deck staring up at the clear blue sky, he knew that he had come close to losing everything, but he had survived. And that was something to be grateful for. In November 1998, the small village of Asuom, nestled deep in the heart of Ghana, was enduring the peak of the dry season. The land was parched. The once lush greenery is now a faded memory. The sun beat down mercilessly each day, and the villagers sought relief wherever they could find it. For many, this meant visiting the local waterhole, a source of life and refreshment in an otherwise unforgiving landscape. The waterhole, located just outside the village, had always been a gathering place for the community. It was where children learned to swim, women washed clothes, and men cooled off after a long day's work. The water was shallow near the edges but grew deeper towards the center, where the older boys often dared each other to dive. Though the villagers knew the risks of swimming in natural bodies of water in Africa, they felt safe at this particular spot. The waterhole had been a haven for generations, and no one could recall a time when anything dangerous had happened there. Kofi Osei, a young man of 18, was among those who frequently visited the waterhole. Tall and strong, with a bright future ahead of him, Kofi was well liked in the village. He was known for his kindness and his love of swimming. On this day, Kofi had finished his chores early and decided to head to the waterhole for a swim. The air was heavy with heat, and the thought of cool water was irresistible. As he walked towards the waterhole, he passed by friends and neighbors who greeted him warmly. It was a typical day in Asuam. Children played in the dusty streets, women gathered under the shade of trees, and men discussed the upcoming harvest season. There was a sense of peace and normalcy that belied the lurking danger. The waterhole itself was a picture of serenity. The surface of the water shimmered under the bright sun, reflecting the clear blue sky above. The trees surrounding the waterhole provided some shade, casting dappled shadows on the water. Birds chirped from the branches, and the occasional splash could be heard as fish broke the surface. To anyone watching, it seemed like a perfect day. But beneath the calm surface, hidden in the murky depths, danger lay in wait. The dry season had forced many animals to seek out new water sources, and a large Nile crocodile had recently made the waterhole its home. The villagers were unaware of the crocodile's presence, as it remained hidden in the deeper parts of the waterhole, biding its time. Nile crocodiles are known for their patience and stealth, often lying in wait for hours, even days, before striking with lethal force. Kofi reached the waterhole and quickly stripped down to his shorts. He dipped his toes into the water, relishing the coolness against his skin. With a smile, he waded in, feeling the tension of the day melt away. He swam out towards the center where the water was deepest, unaware of the predator that lurked below. The water was cool and inviting, and Kofi felt completely at ease. As he floated on his back, looking up at the sky, Kofi couldn't have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. Without warning, the surface of the water erupted in a violent splash. The crocodile, having waited for the perfect moment, launched itself at Kofi with terrifying speed. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his midsection, the force of the bite knocking the air out of his lungs and sending shockwaves of pain through his body. The attack was so sudden and brutal that Kofi didn't even have time to scream before he was pulled under the water. The crocodile's teeth, sharp and strong, dug deep into Kofi's flesh, and the predator began to drag him toward the bottom of the waterhole. The water around them churned as Kofi struggled desperately, his instincts kicking in as he fought for his life. He kicked and punched at the crocodile, trying to free himself from its vice-like grip, but the animal was relentless. It had locked onto its prey, and there was no escape. As Kofi thrashed in the water, the crocodile performed its infamous death roll, twisting its massive body with incredible force. The roll was designed to disorient and subdue its prey, and it worked to devastating effect. Kofi's body was whipped around, and the force of the roll caused him to lose all sense of direction. The pain was overwhelming, and his lungs burned as he fought to hold his breath. The world around him became a blur of dark water and pain. On the shore, a group of villagers had heard the commotion and rushed to the waterhole. They watched in horror as the water turned red with blood, the surface churning as Kofi and the crocodile struggled beneath. Some of the men grabbed sticks and rocks, desperate to help, but they were too far away to intervene. The crocodile was too strong and too determined, and Kofi's chances of survival were slipping away with each passing second. The villagers shouted and waved their arms, hoping to scare the crocodile away, but the predator was focused solely on its prey. It continued to drag Kofi deeper into the water, the struggle becoming more frantic as the young man's strength began to fade. The waterhole, once a place of peace and safety, had become a scene of unimaginable horror. As the crocodile pulled Kofi under for the final time, the water grew still. The villagers stood on the shore, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. The water, now stained with blood, lapped gently against the shore as if nothing had happened. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft cries of the women who had come to see what had happened. Kofi was gone, taken by the predator that had made the waterhole its hunting ground. The village of Asuom would never be the same. The incident served as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk even in the most familiar and seemingly safe places. The waterhole, once a symbol of life and community, had become a place of fear and loss. In the days that followed, the villagers mourned the loss of Kofi, their hearts heavy with grief. They vowed to be more cautious and to never take the safety of their surroundings for granted again. The waterhole, once the center of village life, was now a place of sorrow, a stark reminder of the brutal reality of life in the wild. In August 2005, the sun shone brightly over the crystal-clear waters of the Exuma Cays in the Bahamas. This group of islands, known for their vibrant coral reefs and turquoise waters, was a paradise for tourists seeking adventure beneath the waves. Among the visitors that day was 18-year-old Alex Thompson, a recent high school graduate from Boston, who was on a much-anticipated vacation with his family. The trip to the Bahamas was a gift from his parents, celebrating his upcoming journey to college. Alex had always loved the ocean, and the chance to explore one of the world's most beautiful marine environments was a dream come true. That morning, Alex and his family boarded a boat for a guided snorkeling tour around the coral reefs. The guide, a local Bahamian named Terrence, was an experienced diver who knew the waters like the back of his hand. He had led countless tours and was familiar with the marine life that called the reefs home, including the harmless reef sharks that often swam nearby. Terrence assured the group that these sharks posed no threat to snorkelers, and the group eagerly prepared for their adventure. The boat ride to the snorkeling site was a thrill in itself. The water was so clear that Alex could see the coral formations and schools of fish passing beneath the boat. The islands of Exuma were like jewels scattered across the ocean, their white sand beaches contrasting sharply with the deep blue sea. As the boat anchored near a particularly vibrant reef, the group prepared to enter the water. They donned their snorkeling gear, checked their fins, and slid into the warm embrace of the Caribbean Sea. The underwater world was breathtaking. The coral was alive with color, vivid reds, oranges, and purples, and teeming with life. Schools of fish darted around the group, their scales shimmering in the sunlight that filtered down through the water. Alex was in awe, his heart racing with excitement as he floated above the reef, watching the marine life go about its day. He felt a sense of peace and connection to the ocean that he had never experienced before. As the group swam further from the boat, they marveled at the beauty of the reef, snapping photos with their underwater cameras and pointing out the different species of fish. Terrence led the way, guiding them toward a deeper part of the reef where the coral formations were more pronounced. The water was calm and the group felt completely at ease as they explored the vibrant ecosystem below. But the tranquility of the day was about to be shattered. Unbeknownst to the group, a school of fish had been disturbed nearby, attracting the attention of several reef sharks. These sleek predators, though usually uninterested in humans, were drawn by the commotion. More concerning, however, was the presence of two bull sharks, larger and far more aggressive than the reef sharks. Bull sharks are known for their unpredictable nature and are considered one of the most dangerous shark species. The scent of fish and the activity around the reef had brought them in closer, and they were now circling the group, their interest piqued. The water, once so clear and inviting, suddenly felt different. Alex noticed the change first, the way the fish around him seemed to scatter, the subtle shift in the water's energy. He turned to see Terrence, who had stopped swimming and was scanning the area with a look of concern. Before Alex could process what was happening, a large shadow passed beneath him, and his heart leaped into his throat. A bull shark, nearly 10 feet long, had emerged from the depths, its powerful body gliding through the water with silent menace. The shark circled the group, joined by another of its kind, as the smaller reef sharks followed in their wake. The once peaceful snorkeling trip had turned into a scene of impending danger. Terrence signaled for the group to stay close and remain calm, but the situation quickly escalated. One of the bull sharks, sensing an opportunity, charged at Alex, its muscular body propelling it forward with terrifying speed. The impact was sudden and brutal, the shark's snout ramming into Alex's side and knocking the snorkel from his mouth. The force of the hit sent him spiraling into the water, disoriented and panicked. As Alex struggled to regain his bearings, he felt a sharp pain in his leg. A small cut, likely from a piece of coral, had opened up, and the scent of blood was now in the water. The sharks, already agitated, became frenzied. The reef sharks snapped at the water around Alex while the bull sharks circled closer. Their eyes locked on him as if they had found easy prey. Fear surged through Alex as he tried to swim back to the group, but the sharks were relentless. They swarmed around him, their bodies moving with a deadly grace. Alex kicked out with his fins, using them to push the sharks away, but they kept coming. The water churned as the predators closed in, and Alex could see the flash of teeth as one of the reef sharks snapped at his arm, narrowly missing him. Terrence and the other snorkelers formed a tight circle, their backs to each other as they tried to fend off the sharks. They used their snorkels and flippers to create a barrier, hitting the water to keep the predators at bay. But the bull sharks were persistent, their aggression fueled by the scent of blood and the chaos in the water. The situation was dire, and Alex knew that their only hope was to reach the safety of the boat. Terrence, recognizing the danger, signaled for everyone to move as one toward the boat. The group swam together, staying close, their movements slow and deliberate to avoid further provoking the sharks. The sharks continued to circle, but the group's unity and determination kept them from making another attack. With every stroke, the boat grew closer, but the sharks followed, unwilling to let their prey escape so easily. The adrenaline in Alex's veins pushed him forward despite the pain in his leg and the terror gripping his heart. Finally, they reached the boat, and the crew pulled them aboard, their faces pale with fear and relief. As the last person was pulled from the water, the sharks made one final pass, circling the boat before disappearing into the depths. The group collapsed on the deck, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling from the ordeal. Alex looked down at his leg, the small cut now an angry red, but he was alive. The encounter had left him shaken, a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictable and dangerous side. On a warm August morning in 2007, the sun was rising over the coast of Southern California, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It was the kind of morning surfers dream about. Clear skies, perfect waves, and the cool ocean breeze. Huntington Beach, a popular spot for surfers, was already alive with activity. Among those in the water was 25-year-old Liam Davis, a seasoned surfer who had spent years mastering the waves in this very spot. Liam was in his element as he paddled out, feeling the familiar pull of the ocean. The water was refreshing and the waves were just right, rising and falling in a rhythm that promised an exhilarating ride. Surfing had always been Liam's escape, a way to connect with nature and leave behind the stresses of everyday life. He had been out on the water since dawn, catching wave after wave, and the morning had been nothing short of perfect. As the sun climbed higher, casting a golden glow over the water, Liam sat on his board, waiting for the next set of waves. The beach was beginning to fill with more surfers and onlookers, all eager to enjoy the beautiful day. The ocean, which had been so calm and inviting, suddenly felt different. There was a subtle tension in the air, something that made Liam uneasy. Out of the corner of his eye, Liam noticed a dark, fast-moving shadow beneath the surface. His first thought was that it might be a dolphin, as they were common in these waters. But as the shadow grew closer, Liam's heart began to race. This was no dolphin. The shape was long and sleek, moving with a speed and purpose that set it apart from any fish or sea creature he had seen before. It was a mako shark, one of the fastest and most aggressive sharks in the ocean. Before Liam could react, the shark charged at his board with incredible force. The impact was so sudden and powerful that it knocked Liam off his board and into the water. The world around him became a blur of churning water and adrenaline as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Panic set in as he realized the shark was still there, circling him. As Liam struggled to stay above water, the mako shark struck again, this time biting into his arm. The pain was immediate and excruciating as the shark's razor-sharp teeth tore through muscle and bone. Liam screamed in agony, the sound muffled by the roar of the ocean. The shark thrashed violently, trying to drag him under, its grip unyielding. Instinctively, Liam fought back, using his free hand to punch the shark as hard as he could. He aimed for its gills and snout, knowing these were the most sensitive areas. Each punch was fueled by pure adrenaline and the desperate will to survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shark released its grip, momentarily disoriented by the blows. Seizing the opportunity, Liam scrambled back onto his board, his arm bleeding heavily, and his body trembling with fear and pain. He knew he had to get to shore as quickly as possible. With every ounce of strength he had left, Liam began to paddle furiously, the beach seeming impossibly far away. The water around him was stained with his blood, and he could feel the weight of his injury slowing him down. The shark, sensing its prey was escaping, circled back for another attack. But the earlier blows stunned it enough to give Liam a head start. The distance between him and the shore slowly decreased, but the threat of the shark remained, lurking just behind him. On the beach, other surfers and onlookers had noticed the commotion. A few brave souls paddled out to help, shouting for Liam to keep going and not give up. Their encouragement and presence gave him the final push he needed. As he reached the shallows, the shark finally retreated, disappearing into the deeper water. Liam stumbled off his board and onto the sand, collapsing from exhaustion and shock. His arm was badly mangled, the bite marks clear evidence of the terrifying encounter. Bystanders rushed to his aid, using towels to try to stop the bleeding, while someone called for an ambulance. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and quickly transported Liam to the hospital. The doctors worked tirelessly to save his arm, stitching up the deep wounds and stabilizing his condition. The attack had left Liam with severe injuries, but he was alive, a testament to his will to survive and the quick actions of those who helped him. As Liam lay in the hospital bed, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The ocean, a place he had always considered his sanctuary, had shown its darker side. The attack was a stark reminder that even in familiar waters, danger could strike without warning. The image of the Mako shark's dark, menacing shape would haunt Liam, but it would also serve as a reminder of the thin line between adventure and peril in the vast, unpredictable ocean.